We have some major Sacramento Kings trade updates. As we all know, Monte McNair has been trying to improve the roster over the course of the season, and there have been players that have been struggling over the course of this year, even though Kevin Huerter has bounced back. But now reports have come out about the 3 forwards the Kings are actively pursuing out there in the trade market at this point, and the players the Kings have made expendable in recent trade discussions. And frankly, this has me very, very encouraged, especially compared to other trade talks, trade discussions we've been hearing over the course of this season for the Sacramento Kings. So we're going to break down which players the Kings are actively going after here now at this point, what this means for Sacramento, and what the cost would be for these guys out there on the open market. Because frankly, there are some interesting pieces that could be perfect fits for Sacramento. So we're going to dive into it all in this video. But before we dive into that, folks, you guys have been crushing it with the support over the course of the season, and we're about to enter a crucial point for the Sacramento Kings in terms of games, in terms of schedule, and really in terms of roster construction with the trade season around the corner. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if you're a part of the 83% of our viewers that haven't hit the subscribe button just yet. Appreciate every single one of you. But let's dive into the madness, because we had a report come out from Evan Siderity that really broke down the current state of the Sacramento Kings, as the Kings have acquired about 3 of the top wing options out there on the trade market: Cam Johnson, Kyle Kuzma, as well as Dorian Finney-Smith. And Sacramento, one of the more active teams, have been dangling Kevin Huerter as well as Trey, Lyles in various exploratory trade talks to land an impact player. Now, this is very, very intriguing for Sacramento Kings fans, because a lot of the season, we've heard a ton of chatter, a ton of buzz about Monte McNair trying to make some big moves, trying to make some big shakeups. But the names that we were hearing, Zach LaVine, Brandon Ingram, those guys, yes, are bigger names, yes, are more talented scorers, so to speak, but really in regards to contract situation, in regards to two-way play, in regards to injuries, just would be high risk players. Now, it could be high reward, it could be guys that have very significant impacts on this Kings team if they were brought in, but very, very potentially high downside if one of these moves were to actually go down. So this list of players really makes sense, and it makes sense on both ends of the floor for Sacramento. So basically, the first guy that's on that list, the first guy that was named, and the Nets are, 2 of these guys have been listed to play for the Nets. They just made a trade dealing away Dennis Schroeder, but there are some interesting pieces out here in terms of who we're looking at, because again, Cam Johnson is a guy that this season is putting up some very solid stats. The Nets have been overperforming over the course of this year, and a large part has to do with Cam Johnson and him stepping up over the course of the season. 19 points per game, 4.4 rebounds, 3 assists. He is shooting 43% from behind the three-point line, and he shoots 47% on corner threes. For context, over the course of the season, Kevin Huerter is shooting 31% on corner threes and is shooting 31% on general threes, and then 35.5% out there from the corner. So again, very significant upgrade out there in Cam Johnson, and in regards to size, in regards to defense, right? Johnson is a guy that is 6'8", a couple inches taller, it's a wider wingspan, is a couple years older, but again, the Kings are looking to win now with this DeMar DeRozan, De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis window. With all these guys in the prime of their careers, Cam Johnson can come in and be an effective player out there for this Kings roster on both ends of the floor. So it's very much a guy that I'd be intrigued by if, because again, the indications, the discussions really indicate that the Kings are looking to deal away, whether it's Kevin Huerter or Trey Lyles to make the money work, and then maybe I don't want it to be some crazy lucrative draft pick compensation, right? The chatter around the NBA was that the Nets were willing to combine Dennis Schroeder as well as Cam Johnson in order to receive a first-round pick in one of these trade talks, but the fact that they let Schroeder go for a combination of 3 second-round picks indicates to me that the market isn't going to command at least a very, very solid first-round pick there. So hopefully the Kings can come in, give up Kevin Huerter, who is still a guy that has been playing better as of late. This is one thing I do want to discuss, do want to sort of bring up, because in his last 5 games, Kevin Huerter, he's been having a pretty rough season as we've seen, but in his last 5 games, he's averaging 13.6 points per game, averaging 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and shooting 41% from behind the three-point line on 7 attempts per game. And now, I also want to mention, this includes the most recent game that Kevin Huerter played in. That was a complete stinker, so he has been good. He has been better as of late. So again, I don't want to construe a few games and say, hey, Huerter has a ton of trade value right now, trade while the iron's hot and stuff. But GMs are going to look at that. He has a nice hot stretch of games. Hey, okay, there's something interesting here. Maybe he's not as negative an asset as some people may have projected. So that is a thing to look at, a thing to discuss. I mean, the Kings have been winning some games as of late, right? Throughout 4 wins over the last 5 games, and the schedule's a bloodbath, which we'll get to at the end there, but why it makes this situation a little bit more dire. But let's dive into these other guys here right now, who is a very, very interesting player out there, because again, looking at the sort of stats in terms of what he's been able to do this season, his numbers are down. Now, things are complete mess over there in Washington. 16 points per game, 5.6 rebounds, 2 assists per night, and is shooting 28% from behind the 3-point line and 30% out there on the corner threes. 29 years old, and things are just a complete mess. It's just not, it hasn't been a good season for Kyle Kuzma. But the reality of this all is he's a much better player than what he can statistically has been putting up over the course of the season. But with him having a down season, it's a time to buy low. Like, there's that opportunity the Kings have right now to really just slide in and make one of these asking prices. It's been pretty lucrative in recent seasons. It's one of the main reasons the Kings haven't traded for him in the past, despite being linked to him. It feels like season after season after season after season. But right now, Kyle Kuzma, we just took a look at his stats. They are bad. Last season, Kyle Kuzma was averaging 22 points per game, 6.6 rebounds, 5 assists, and the 3-point shooting was 34%. So up a whole, basically 7%. So Kyle Kuzma is a lot better than the player that he's been over the course of the season for Washington. Has dealt with injuries, only played 12 games for the Wizards over the course of this year, but definitely a buy low opportunity for Sacramento, which again, you want to do. You don't want to go out there and buy players at the highest potential value. You want to come in, make savvy moves, make savvy decisions, and capitalize on the iron's hot. So, the asking price last season for Kyle Kuzma was 2 first-round picks. I don't imagine that will be the case right now for the Washington Wizards, who are in a really, really dire spot. So that's kind of the reality there. And then you also have DFS, Dorian Finney-Smith, who is probably the least intriguing player on this list, even though he is a very effective 3-point shooter. 11 points per game, 4.3 rebounds, 2 assists, 45% behind the 3-point line, which is great, and 36% on corner threes. But I know, especially from Dallas Mavericks fans that have watched him play a ton, the Nets, they haven't been that great, but he is a frustrating player at times for your team. He is definitely very good. He's definitely going to be a guy that would be a nice acquisition for Sacramento, but of course, it's Cam Johnson and Kyle Kuzma are a bit more intriguing, even though I guess Dorian Finney-Smith could be a nice off-the-ball threat, wouldn't have the ball in his hands a ton, so could complement DeMar DeRozan, could complement these guys a little bit better. So those are the interesting pieces. And then, of course, Kevin Huerter is the guy that's going to be on the way out, the salary matching player for these moves, as well as Trey Lyles, who is averaging 5.4 points per game, 4 rebounds, and dealt with injuries to start off this year. He's had some nights where he looks solid, but of course, as a rotation forward player for a proper, championship team, upper tier playoff team, I think a lot of Kings fans are a little bit turned off in terms of his performance over the course of this year. So the Kings are in a very interesting spot. It's almost a little dire position because, fortunately, they were able to get some wins against crucial games to get some W's. The Spurs, the Jazz, the Pelicans, teams where the Kings have lost these games at times in the past. It's the reality. They just play down to their competition certain nights, and they take those L's. But this team's schedule is an absolute, it's a bloodbath coming up. It's the Nuggets, it's the Lakers twice, the Pacers, who are trying to be better, the Pistons, the Lakers once again. So gettable games, competitive games the Kings should win, but not easy pushover teams that are in the middle of the NBA, which the Kings really need to beat here now at this point. And then you play the Mavericks, who of course made the conference finals last year, of Kyrie Luka, the Sixers, who have been trash. But then you face off against the Grizzlies, the Warriors, the Heat, the Celtics, the Bulls, which should be easier, but the Bucks, who have been playing really well as of late, the Rockets, and then you get to the Wizards, the Golden State, and all these different teams. But this is by no means an easy schedule coming up for Sacramento. So making some moves, making them early, to capitalize on, get some W's during this stretch of games will be very, very intriguing to see if Monte McNair is able to pull the trigger as fast as he could. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below about these moves, about these updates. You guys have the best thing as far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.